policing. We understand some things have to change, and when they do, we have to adapt to them.
Portland's new police chief says it's his job to lead the Bureau through changes as the mayor announces some big ones. After more than 2 weeks of protests focused on police brutality and racial justice, Mayor Wheeler proposed a number of police reforms, including dissolving 3 agencies within the Bureau and redirecting millions of dollars to community programs. Pat Doris reports.
Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler said the community is demanding change and he is listening and acting. He called it an historic moment and said the focus right now is on the police bureau because of the death of George Floyd and the questions it raises about every police agency. And so he's proposing swift change.
We propose to redirect over $7 million from the police bureau and $5 million from other city funds directly to communities of color, reinvesting $12 million. We're going to dissolve the gun violence reduction team, the school resource officer program, and the transit specialty units. We'll stand with the Oregon Legislative People of Color Caucus to fight for urgently needed reforms, and with our federal delegation to reform the qualified immunity doctrine. We'll ban chokeholds. We'll create a private right of action for intentional discrimination by law enforcement, and will reform the use of consent searches in traffic stops, amongst other things.
Those items involve teams or policies that advocates say target blacks and perpetuate institutional racism. Police unions across America are pushing back against efforts to change the way policing is done, and Portland's police union quickly criticized the mayor's proposals.
Well, obviously, that's a catastrophic mistake. It'll resonate shockwaves through the community as public safety. Our citizens are at risk. Obviously, units like the Gun Violence Reduction Task Force, they go to hundreds of calls, thousands of calls of gunfire. They've taken hundreds of guns off the street. They've arrested hundreds of people who are violent gun offenders and respond to thousands of calls of thousands of bullets that have been sprayed in our neighborhoods, in our homes, in our parks, in our cars, and place where we recreate. So that's going to be a huge catastrophic issue for safety in the city of Portland.
Earlier today, I asked Mayor Wheeler about that. Won't dropping out of the transit police and breaking up the gun violence reduction team actually make our city more dangerous?
I do not believe that will lead to less safety on the transit system, because if there is an issue on the transit system, people will still call 911. They will still ask for a police response. The difference will be we will not have people engaged as members of the transit police function. With regard to the gun violence reduction team, there are aspects to that team that definitely deserve to be evaluated. There have been reforms that have already been put into place. Gun violence remains a serious issue in the city. We had over 400 shootings in the city of Portland last year, and we still need that investigative function.
The mayor said he will push for change as soon as possible and that the city will drop out of the transit police program by the end of the year at the latest. In Southwest Portland, Pat Doris, KGW News.
Throughout the protest, the Portland Police Bureau has provided a running tally of arrests. That number now stands at roughly 200 people. So who are these people? Are they out-of-towners, Antifa, counter-protesters? To find out, KGW investigative reporter Kylie Boshi analyzed hundreds of jail and court records.
Despite all of the peaceful protests, Portland police has made dozens of arrests over the past week or so, leading some people to make broad characterizations about those clashing with law enforcement or causing the damage, which got me wondering, who are these protesters? To find out, I created a database of 168 protesters arrested in Portland over the past week and a half, then analyzed their court and jail records. The data showed almost all of those arrested are from the Portland area. They're not out-of-towners. The average age was 26 years old. They're younger, and most don't have serious criminal records. Sociologist Randy Blazak.
There is a complex element to social phenomena like protests and even in riots, and they attract a lot of different people for a lot of different motivations.
Of those charged with serious offenses like rioting, which is a felony, only one appeared to have any affiliation with an organized group, Antifa. Another person admitted in court records they were just taking advantage of the chaos by looting a store.
There's a kind of a intoxicating element to being in a crowd. You all of a sudden are pulled into this binary of us versus them, and people who normally would never have acted in an aggressive manner can kind of develop this sort of mob rules mentality where you just get sucked into it.
Only 16% of those arrested face serious felony charges. Everyone else is looking at misdemeanors for offenses like curfew violations and interfering with a police officer.
And those charges issued by the police do not require the person to be kept behind bars. They are invariably being released on their own recognizance.
As criminal defense lawyer Mark Kogan explained, and was confirmed by jail records, almost all of those arrested were booked and released.
For the vast majority of people who have been arrested, I do not think that any criminal charges will stick.
The records suggest we can't blame the unrest on one group or a certain type of person. Just like the very issue compelling people to protest, it's complicated. Kyle Laboshi, KGW News.
Some Portland fitness gyms are cutting their ties with the brand CrossFit after the company's CEO lashed out at a Seattle gym owner. The gym owner had asked the company to take a public stand against racism. Then, the next day, CEO Greg Glassman replied to a tweet that said racism is a public health issue. Glassman replied saying, "It's Floyd 19."
Honestly, my first thought was, Greg is racist. That was my first thought. Insensitive, rude, and just, with how everything's going right now, I think it's just exposing just the racism that's deep in our culture.
More than 1,000 other gyms across the world have cut their affiliation. Reebok and Rogue Fitness have cut ties with the brand as well. The CEO has resigned and apologized. An effort to clean up the streets of Portland every night after the protest is underway. It's called Project Floyd. 23-year-old Cheeto Marilay came up with the idea after attending a protest. He saw all the trash left behind after the protest and took it upon himself to clean up the mess left behind. He calls it Project Floyd. Now, every morning after the protest, he and volunteers clean up.
Its chief concern is to address the trash left behind by protesters and rally goers, because oftentimes, on the march to history, you'll sometimes forget about your environment and the trash that you leave behind.
Most of Project Floyd's efforts center around Chapman Square. Marilay says he'll be out there cleaning up as long as the protests continue. There is a developing situation in Beaverton this evening, a gas leak at a warehouse building on Southwest 5th. 2 people were taken to the hospital with carbon monoxide poisoning. One of them has potentially life-threatening injuries. First responders have evacuated the building and all nearby buildings. TVFNR says it's still detecting dangerous levels of carbon monoxide, and crews will stay on the scene to help ventilate the building.